thank you for joining me for this, and thank you for chatting with me ahead of time too. And I was saying it wrong. I was saying Evommune, so Evommune, yes?
Yes, Eva.
Okay. I will send a word to all of our everybody at the company. So, okay, tell me a little bit about Evommune and your role in the company.
So Evommune is a pharmaceutical company that is using skin to be the magnifying glass into your body. We believe that a lot of diseases, especially like your immunology responses, start at the skin. So we have taken that, and our founder, Dr. Eugene Bauer, was a dermatologist, dean of dermatology at Stanford, and he's taken that knowledge through different biotech companies and now onto this one to continue that research into how skin goes into the immune responses. Our CEO also has like 20 years experience in the biotech company, and we are looking to help with different cases. So psoriasis, alopecia, many different ones on our website. I'm not a scientist, so
no, that's fine. Yeah,
I can't speak to it. I'm the executive assistant. My role, being that it's a startup, it's a lot bigger than what it would be in a different company. We were in a startup before, but I'm wearing many more hats. So that's why I worked closely with BMO, was that I was setting up I had our GoDaddy accounts. Our CEO set up GoDaddy first, and then we went to an email migration because, we need to have more accessibility into Microsoft. So we had to do the migration from GoDaddy into Microsoft, and we used BMO to do it. Yeah. And we've also had to expand like our SharePoint website, and you can't really do that on GoDaddy. We definitely needed the BMO support on that. Or, well, they're not doing our SharePoint, but just the migration.
Right, just to be able to like actually mess with it. What made you guys decide to go with GoDaddy? I'm just like I went through GoDaddy for my company, so just curious though.
I think it's the same thing. I think our founder just thought it was, he did that kind of on his own, so he just picked it, just accessibility, the ease of using it. And then I just was an administrator on it. It was easy to add emails, easy to take off emails, easy to get Office 365 on it, download. You can't do too much, so you can't really mess too many things up on it. So right. It's user friendly, but as you're growing, you can't stay with it.
Yeah. And how many people do you guys have right now at Evommune?
Right now, if we're including consultants, I want to say I would give us like 19 people. If we're just talking just employees, I think we're at 7.
Okay.
But we have a lot of, being that we're small, we have a lot of consultants.
Yeah, absolutely. And so was there kind of like a GoDaddy breaking point where you're like, okay, we have to get off of this? Or was it? Yeah.
When it came to file share. I'm not the biggest fan of Teams for file share, and no one else in the company really is either. And we had to work closely with legal and our finance partners. So that's when we had to build our SharePoint site. And we couldn't do that with GoDaddy because it would mean almost like creating 2 sites apart. We needed to have it all collaborated together. So in creating our SharePoint was when we said, okay, we need to migrate the emails from GoDaddy to Microsoft, because we didn't want to get the SharePoint with GoDaddy. Right. We wanted the SharePoint entirely in its own. And then we're building, it's probably like 2 weeks out, but we built an entire SharePoint site.
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. Yeah. Especially with like legal stuff, it's a little bit crazy.
And with biotech, you have due diligence. So in biotech companies, if someone's looking to invest in you, they want to see your stuff, but you can't just give like a little folder. You have to make sure that they see what they see and not what they see. So you have to have and file share for regulatory terms too. If there's different things you need to share with different partners, you have to send that link to them. That wouldn't be, and you want it to have working documents where you share the information in live time. You can only do that really SharePoint. You can't even really use Box for that type of stuff.
Right. Yeah. And it's all safe and secure, but yeah. Okay. That makes sense. How did you find BMO then?
So we had a consultant, Nathan Carcraft, and BMO came recommended to him. So he was shopping around. So our IT consultant actually got a different job and then knew he wasn't going to be able to handle the load with us. And he thought that we needed more of, he's a VP. So his position, like handling it was a little bit different. He needed someone that was more, I'm forgetting the word right now, but I'm trying to forget it. Like not like a controller, but something else. It'll come back to me. But Nathan decided that BMO would be the best. We interviewed, I think, 3 people to do the migration, and we liked BMO the best, so we went with BMO.
Yeah. Were you guys thinking about just doing it in-house originally? And then
yes. Originally, I thought he would be able to do the migration. And he was like, there's a lot more layers to it. So being that he is, I think he wasn't used to that part of it since he had gone to the VP status. They don't really have to do that anymore.
Yeah, it's super technical because we have a blog about it. And even I'm not super, super technical. So like reading through it, I was like, oh, I would be overwhelmed trying to do this on my own.
And the last thing you want to do is lose emails. That's the last thing you can afford to do is lose emails.
Yeah.
So we originally started talking probably like, man, I would even say like September, October, maybe end of September, early October, where we were looking to hire a group. No, it definitely had to be maybe November. Well, we had looked to hire it and then we started working together, but we didn't actually do the migration until last week.
Right. Yeah, that's crazy. And so like what in particular made you guys decide to go with BMO? I know it was a recommendation, but obviously you were looking at other firms. So what kind of?
I think the interview went well. I think he was, I forget who it was now, but I think he was calm, answered all the questions. It was reasonable, had a reasonable walkthrough, do the step-by-steps. And then it also, I think the difference was too, is that that after the migration, you would stay on a little bit longer, that we had a couple weeks or a month that we could keep you on and then decide if we wanted to sever ties and if we were handling our own website. Right. And the domain and everything, that we'd be able to do that. But we had the option of that. So that was important to us too. I think that was kind of the determinant factors, that you would stay on and be able to help with questions after, not just do the migration, then it was a cut, because a lot of people do that.
Exactly. You're like, bye, good luck.
It's not that simple.
It's really not. It's funny because, it sounds like you know a lot about it, but a lot of people are like, oh, you just like click a button and it just moves everything,
No, now that I've gone through it, absolutely not. That's not the case. I would be way more prepared the second time around, but the first time, since I've never actually had to do the migration and Nathan was busy, everyone was bombarding me with the questions. Now I know so much more.
Yeah, you're like, I know more than I ever wanted to know.
Yeah.
Okay, so did you guys know the price prior to the start? And was it kind of like a competitive price, or how did it stack up to the other firms you were looking at?
I think it was right in the middle. If I remember correctly, it was right in the middle.
And it was super clear, like you walked through the calculator with them, or they just gave you a quote, or how did that go?
We went through it twice. Because there was a misunderstanding on the emails. So some of them, with GoDaddy, you can't make shared email box accounts.
Right.
And there are shared email box accounts on this one. And that's what we had to discuss to go through. And so when I initially discussed it, it wasn't the right price. We didn't mind having to pay more. It's fine. But when I started working with the BMO engineer, Harpreet, then we realized, he's like, no. People shouldn't have sign-ons. He's like, everyone shouldn't have a password for that. He's like, that should be a shared mailbox. All things, I'm not an IT expert, so I didn't know, but I've learned now.
Yeah, exactly. And just like the architecture of your site, like or your emails, like how to make everyone have the right access. Yeah.
I mean, everything from scratch. We went from I reached out to our old partners in finance, and I was like, I knew the process because we did it there. I was like, but I have to set up the process. Like, how do I get like a doctor's information? Do I give them? I created an ACH form. I had to create our accounting at evommune.com, then AP invoice at evommune.com. So if someone had an invoice, and to create that whole process, which, to someone else may seem easy, but since I didn't have experience doing it, I was like, what email accounts do we need?
Yeah, no, I think that's the funny thing, especially like when you start with just a couple people, it's like, okay, we have everything we need. And then you start moving and you're like, uh-oh, hold on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I went to I knew what all the process of our old company Jamira. And so I knew to like mimic it to an extent, but I also knew there was things that I didn't like the process. So then that was our time to change it. And that's what we changed.
Yeah, totally. It's nice to start fresh. 2021. So email sounds like your biggest concern. Did you have other concerns about migrating?
Our domain too. I was scared we'd lose anything with our domain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because we also, our website was handled by partners named W2O, and we didn't want to lose the DNS. The DNS was important, and then to keep the flow of the website open. So we do have a page where they can contact us, follow us, subscribe to us. And I also handle that account. It's like our business inquiry, and I was scared of losing anything there. So I got, Harpreet worked with our partners at W2O. We did a Zoom call between the three of us, and they were able to ensure like that, the DNS codes and the AW, because we went from, they had AWS because they use an Amazon platform for the website. And so they had to share that and then make updates to both.
Yeah.
But Harpreet had made us aware of that. So I knew.
Yeah, he's really good. What did you guys do to prepare for the migration? Like, did we give you any tips or ask you to do anything or anything internally that you did to prepare?
I would say if I went back again, I'd have a little bit better of a communication because my team freaked out. And like I said, I didn't have experience communicating it. I'm not IT communication. If I would go back in time, I think it's good to separate people from their needs. So if I went back in time, I would separate my PCs from my Macs. And then another layer of that is I would separate my consultants who have like shared email accounts and have multiple email accounts on their desktops. So they're not fearful of messing with their other accounts. I would go back to that. I think that, yeah, I think those three have to be separated because I sent out all the documents in one, like with the cell phone, and people, I think every single person had, I only had one person that didn't have a question afterwards. Everyone had like a glitch. My CMO was on the phone for 2 hours with a glitch. My CEO and I got on the phone. Kata is the Mac expert. So I spoke to him with Bruno and we got ours done within 15 minutes. But unfortunately, Dr. Bauer and Harpreet were on the phone probably for like an hour and a half because it wasn't coming through and it wasn't getting fixed. And then I have another consultant right now who she still doesn't have her phone set up. And yeah, and then another Mac user wasn't getting some invite. Like some of the invites are still like a little shaky on that. Janice couldn't access her email password. She couldn't change her password. Emily. And then we had a glitch on the display names. So the display names, like for instance, for Emily was like Emily.ip instead of just saying Emily ip. But we got that fixed. So if I was going back in time, I would set it up PC, Mac, cell phone, consultants. And then I would probably go through the steps because some of the steps weren't clear for the team. So I probably should have done a dry run of it myself before. But it's hard to do a dry run of it until you're doing it.
It really is. I know. It's funny. Actually, we're filming a video of it right now. And I'm like, okay, well, can you go set up like a dummy account and subscribe to some emails? Like it's a long process just to even like show someone how to do. So
yeah. I think it's once Kata got on the phone with me, it was so much easier because then it was like, okay, shut this down. And then for each one, I think that it would have, or I don't even, because like Lewis and I both had Macs, but they were just like slightly different on the process we had to do. Like, I think if there was like maybe a step, like if this happens to you, go this way. If you take this route, go this way. But it's hard to say because everyone's computer goes a little bit different.
Right. Do you guys have different OSs on your Macs? Different
No, we have the same.
Weird.
Yeah, he literally made me get the exact same as him, even though I would have preferred a PC.
I have both now, and it's really funny because I'll try and like do commands on one, and it doesn't work on the other. I'm just like, wait a second, this used to work. What's happening?
Yeah, but thankfully the team was great, so they were extremely responsive. So like Bruno Kata got on, Harpreet got on, and they was definitely off hours. So they were amazing to respond and amazing to like help out, which was just made life easier because it did pretty much like everyone had like some type. I don't even know what happened to Jeans. And then Jean still wasn't done, but since I saw what Kata did to mine, I got on a Zoom call with Jean and I did it for Jean.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but I saw
Really?
what it did to mine, so I knew what it was.
Yeah, you're like in the trenches with them through this.
Oh yeah, they're like, wow, this is impressive, Deborah. You just upped your IT skills.
Right? Like, yep, adding it to my resume.
I was like, yes, as in sync, working with legal and learning their terminology. Amazing.
Yeah, that's a lot. Makes my brain hurt. How long did the migration take?
So the migration process where we were totally offline was 2 hours, but the time to do after ran over the whole weekend to Monday. But just like 2 hours, like for their side of it, the back end. And then I also hopped on the phone for that because I had to make sure W2O and Harpreet were connected for our DNS.
Right. And then was that time okay? Like, were people aware of it and it was out of hours and all that kind of stuff?
People were aware of it, but because we did it on a Friday over the weekend, I think it would be good maybe to do like on a Thursday afternoon so that you still have full access to, like, because they were pinging me freaking out because they get the Service Pro, we're not, these are off hours, and so they were stressing out and coming to me. But if we did it during the weekday, I think it would have been a little bit smoother than they had the day. For us though, regardless of what they say, to me it worked out because Monday was a holiday, so I didn't have any meeting scheduled, so it wasn't like anyone was missing a meeting on Monday freaking out about it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that makes sense though, because I mean, even though I'm like off work on the weekends, I still check my calendar and, just sure everything is on point. So if I got error messages, I'd be like, uh-oh,
Yeah.
where am I supposed to be Monday? This is a problem. Yeah. So, and like, were you able to communicate with everyone ahead of time, or do you feel like should we have provided more materials to kind of prepare people, or?
No, I think the materials, I think it's just the step-by-step is a little bit different. So some people were like, like I said, I think the only thing I would do different is I would do like, this is for PCs, this is for Macs, and this is going to be for your cell phone. And this is like, and know that each one is 100% separate. And I would and if like you're announcing it to your team and showing them the file, don't even bother showing them the other file.
Right.
Because I had someone look at the wrong file, and people will always do that because their mind is somewhere else.
Right. Exactly.
And then I think for like a CEO and CMO, I just wish I would have just got them on the phone right away. I just would have had like an engineer, because for C-suite, they don't want to, not that they don't want to do it, but they're so occupied with different stuff and their mind is somewhere else that it's hard for them to like switch it.
Yeah. Well, they just need it to work. It's like, I just need this. It's a tool. Make it work.
Like, oh my God, they're not working right now. I'm like, okay, let's see what we can do.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. I know we're so used to all our tools working like perfectly all the time that when they don't, Microsoft just went down one day this summer for like 2 hours, but it's a big deal, and people are just totally freaking out. It's like, yeah, we rely on this stuff for sure. So
way too much. Yes.
Yeah, it makes sense. Okay, so overall, how did the migration go? Like on a 1 to 10, what would you give it?
I would give it like
good.
So I would give the migration a 7, but I would give it with the team support and the members like engineer Bruno, Kata, and Harpreet, especially Harpreet being available. I'll boost it up to like a 9.
Yeah.
Because if they weren't available, oh my God, my life would have been miserable.
Yeah, I can't imagine not having like aftercare, just follow-up questions and that kind of stuff. I'm surprised that people don't offer that as much.
Yeah, because this week is when I really saw it. Like, Deborah, my phone still isn't working. We're unable to get into this account. We need to go to the back end on this. And then I probably, but this is just for my own, I probably have to do like, I'm certain that most companies have like an IT person, and when we do, it'll be different. But it's like, I need some training probably for like the admin center. It's completely different now.
Yeah.
So that's not on BMO at all.
Yeah, and honestly, a lot of companies don't have an IT person. They kind of they have a Deborah. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, you're now doing this and you're learning it.
Congratulations.
Yeah, exactly. Like learn it on the fly and then you get to teach everyone. So
Yes.
you're not alone for sure.
Didn't communicate it properly. Oh, okay. Thank you. I'll take that into consideration.
Yeah, I'll do my best. Maybe read the emails.
Did you follow that email thread? Oh, okay. Well, it's right here. Let me bring it back to your mailbox.
Totally.
I'll bring it to the top.
I'll send it right back up there. Yeah, I know. It's funny. Well, there's so much communication. It's easy to miss stuff, but it's hard when you're like, this is my project. I need you to pay attention.
I did a meeting too where I like showed it all, but that's where I because I know that people like especially when it's such a long document, they'll just kind of fly by it. So I did a meeting before us meeting with Harpreet. So I let everyone like talk to Harpreet and have questions with him. So he was fortunate enough, like 30 minutes before our actual migration, he hopped on the phone with the whole team just to say like, hey, do you have any questions? Like, is there anything you guys need help with? And that's where I say I would separate the PCs from the Macs and the consultants because they each had like separate different questions. And that's good to know, like if I ever had to do something like that again.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Just to really segment people, because even in the same meeting, you're like, no, ignore this part, but we don't do that.
Right. I did a dry run through with them just to see what questions would pop up, and it was different for each one. But the biggest thing was they were so worried about anything falling off their calendar or any emails being lost. It was just a real high concern for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. Yeah, it worked. And I mean, I know you've only had it for a couple of days now, but how has being off of GoDaddy, having that like more flexibility, more ability to maneuver, how has that changed for you?
Good. I just had the only thing was that I had to learn quick was upping the MB for your attachments. That was one, because it was only 25 MB and like we needed 150 MB. And then, but that was fun. It's not too bad. It was just figuring that out. So you have more access to like playing with it, like who gets what. And it was fine. It's just the display names. That was probably the only thing that was tough. But I think it's starting to like really transition to where like if I click their names now, it's the first one that populates instead of like the last. But it's it's better. You have more flexibility and you get to see into a lot more.
Yeah. So now you're like more on learning how to use these new things, but you know that they're there, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Going through the admin center.
Yeah. Well, like you were saying, with GoDaddy, it's like really simple and you kind of can't mess it up. And then you get to the more complex stuff and it's like, uh-oh, am I pushing the self-destruct button?
I like to compare it like to PC to like a Mac. Mac is you get what you see, and then PC there's always so many more layers. Like if you learn how to do this, then it's going to expand on that. And it's Microsoft, so it's definitely like those layers to it. And GoDaddy is just, you cannot mess it up.
Yeah, exactly. Which makes sense when you have only a few people, but let's see. Okay, so other than segmenting people, is there any other advice you would give to someone trying to make the move? Like, would you recommend making the move from GoDaddy to Microsoft? And if so, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't even start on GoDaddy because the migration is just a hiccup. But I think, for the ease of people, definitely you have to have somebody to help you do it because there's so many little things that pop up from a migration. I do recommend having it. If you're under 10 people, then maybe you could stick with GoDaddy. But if you're doing large file shares and you need contractors to have visibility and send them links and they only have access to that link, you definitely have to move away from GoDaddy because external partners can't really see certain aspects of your team folders if it's in Teams. And SharePoint and GoDaddy are so separate. So if you're tiny, then sure. But once you hit that point of more than 10 people, you definitely have to have your things built at Microsoft.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Get it from the source where you can actually navigate stuff. Would you recommend BMO for a migration to a friend?
Yes, I would. What was the other part of the question you said? I think what Harpreet mentioned though, that was a good point. And then I hadn't remembered everyone else, which was key, was remember that your rules and the groups won't transfer. That was a big one. Take note of that before.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good point.
And the reminder of the teams, because the teams clears out over the migration, and then you could bring the teams back.
Right.
So
did you guys bring it back exactly as you had it, or did you kind of like reorganize stuff?
Exactly how we had it, just because we're going to move to SharePoint, so it was fine just to bring it exactly how we had it. But we learned, Harpreet showed us how to do that, where we were like downloading files, bringing it onto OneDrive as a backup, and then also having the files like on one computer and then uploading it back, and you don't have to keep it on your computer, and having that OneDrive open. So that was a new process we learned too, and then transferring it back over.
Yeah. Awesome. No, that's a really good point about the teams and the groups and everything. That makes a big difference.
Yeah, and teams, I mean, we had a bunch of stuff in teams, but it wasn't so extensive either, because like it's been, for everyone else, it's probably been like 6 months. So it's not as extensive as it would be if we were there like in for a full year and a half. We're just hitting the spot where we're getting a ton more contracts and everything. And we basically kept all our contracts with legal. So now we'll use it more.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Doing it earlier rather than later probably is helpful.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so you would recommend Vimeo for a migration? Okay, cool. And then, any like last closing comments or anything you would say in general about the migration, or other advice, or anything?
We're really thankful for Harpreet and his patience. He was always happy to work with us. He never had an attitude, and I felt like my attitude was growing, because I was just like, oh, they keep asking me. And he was always patient and calm.
Yeah, he is amazing. He's so sweet. That's awesome.
Poor guy. He probably heard like he'd know, because at this point we were like joking about stuff. I was like, oh, so he understood. He's like, oh, I see you're stressed today.
You're like, poor guy. You are correct. I am stressed today.
I was like, it's a lot.
It is. It's a really stressful process. I mean, it's basically like, walking around with a bunch of eggs and trying not to break them, and you're like juggling them. And
and my personal RIT guy was the one that was like, let's do it in January. And I was like, no, we have to do it in December, because Q1 for any biotech company is crazy busy. So I knew we were going into high period, and I was like, oh, it's okay. Worked it out.
Yeah. How come you decided, like, who got to decide when it would happen and that kind of
stuff? RIT guy, who wasn't on it for that week at all. But RIT guy was the one that our IT consultant, he got to decide when it would be, but because he wasn't sure like how we would transfer over teams. But once we actually worked one-on-one with Harpreet, him and I got it done like within 2 days.
Right.
It wasn't that hard at all.
So it would have been better for you to do it in December, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's good to tell people like do it on a quiet time, because if someone's scared of like hopping onto their email and doesn't want to be away for 2 hours, then they're like, definitely pick a low period. Like, but they already tell you that.
Yeah.
At that point, it was just like, let's just go. We don't really have an option.
Right. Well, I like the low, like we always tell people like a low period in the day, after business hours and that kind of stuff. But that's a really good point in terms of like a low business period in general. Like maybe the holidays are busy for you, so you don't do it then. Maybe they're slow, you do it then. Assuming you have that flexibility though. So
right. Like I said, with this one, because we waited that point, I was just like, we're just gonna go.
Let's just do it. Yeah.
I was like, me and Harpreet, he was like, let's just do it. I was like, let's just go. I was like, we got to get it done. I was like, once diligence comes and people are asking for other stuff, I was like, we won't be able to. I was like, we got to do it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad you developed a good relationship with him. He's so sweet and so helpful. So yeah, that's awesome. Yes. Cool. Well, those are all my questions. I'll stop recording and then I'll ask you about the nonprofit.